On this week's episode of I-501C, the podcast for nonprofit board members, I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing Linda Dale. Linda is a CPA. She's also board chair of Space Coast Health Foundation over in Brevard County, the Melbourne area, and they are a health conversion foundation. She also serves on the credit union board, and we'll talk a little bit about that. She's a certified CPA in Kentucky and in Florida, and that has really helped form her involvement in the nonprofit space. So please join this conversation I have with Linda. Hey, I want to jump in real quick. Somebody asked me the other day, what does the Corley Company do? Well, we do three things for nonprofits. One, we facilitate meetings, yes, like board retreats where we discuss governance and strategy with all the members of the board. Number two, advise CEOs and help them as they make decisions and implement actions to drive their mission. And then finally, we produce podcasts such as this one, but also for a number of nonprofits to help you get the word out, get your message out. So if you're interested in any of these services, please feel free to reach out to Michael at thecorleycompany.com. Now back to the podcast. On this week's episode of I-501CU, the podcast for nonprofit board members, I have a pleasure of interviewing really somebody who's become a friend of mine. She is a phenomenal board chair and even a CPA by training, Linda Dale, board chair for Space Coast Health Foundation, and has sat on several boards in her career, but I'm going to let her introduce herself. Linda, if you would, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your career, and the board you serve on.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm honored that you've asked me to join you on your podcast. I was very fortunate in my first job in Florida. I went to work for a CPA firm that one of the managing partners happened to be the incoming chair of our local Chamber of Commerce. And he was very encouraging of staff to get involved. And so my first nonprofit volunteer work really started at our local Chamber of Commerce. Started working on committees. Those committee times then led to board positions. And as you mentioned, I'm a CPA, so I have held the treasurer position on every board I've ever served. So that I don't need to be redundant and say that each time because you know that's the position that I served. But that led to meeting other people and showing my interest in the community and getting involved. And so from that, it really went to opportunities to serve in environmental. I was on our chapter of the Keep America Beautiful. We have a Keep Brevard Beautiful here. That was really one of my, outside of the Chamber of Commerce, that was one of my first board services that, of course, treasurer and then chaired. But that answered one of my personal pet peeves is littering. And that was of course, a major focus of Keep Brevard Beautiful. And from there, that, as I think you would know, and most of your volunteers, once you start to volunteer, it gets around that these people are, hey, ask Linda, she might do it. And so I've been on Zoo Board, I've been on our professional organization board for CPAs. So it's led to quite a bit of opportunity to serve and been very happy to do it because I have learned so much. When you move to a new state, don't know anybody, as we did in the early 80s, it was a great way to learn about our community.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I know you serve on a couple boards right now. So you're on Space Coast Health Foundation, as I said before, but you're also on another board, which is slightly different. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Sure. I serve on a credit union board, and the similarities are that credit unions are a tax exempt, so our organization, and the majority of credit union boards are filled by volunteers. So it's not like there are some, but the majority are not paid positions. So it's very much like another nonprofit organization where you have community volunteers that come in and sit on the board. Now, of course, there's a it's a financial institution that is highly regulated, and so there's a lot of compliance. So the government really leads into a lot of the compliance and the financial stewardship, as we do in all boards. But you have to be very careful about, of course, maintaining adequate capital, because that is what keeps your organization afloat. But being a credit union with members is very much the same philanthropic and community-minded mission, as well as any of the other organizations.
And I can only imagine the amount of time serving on a credit union board has got to be quite a bit more than on like Space Coast Health Foundation's board. A foundation
Well, it
board.
can be, again, at times with certain, when the regulators come in, we are supposed to be there and participating, because they want to make sure that, again, we're the governance arm of that organization. So it does require that time and that willingness to learn about what that involves. So, I have, even as a CPA, I started my own practice in 1990 and focused primarily in tax work. So I did not have the accounting background or the tax background for a financial institution. So it has been a great learning experience, and I've certainly been able to take that accounting and tax background and what I've learned from the financial institution background, and it's been very helpful for my service on other boards.
I can only imagine, and you joked earlier about you being a treasurer on every board, and we all laugh about, if you're a CPA, you're targeted for that. If you're an attorney, you're going to be targeted to help on the legal side of things. But with that financial background, dare I say, it's a must. You should have somebody on the board with that level of financial background. And how has that helped you help the organizations for which you serve on?
Well, I think it's offered me the opportunity that I have, with that ability and training, I can see things quickly on a financial statement. There will be things that jump out to me that, of course, someone who's doesn't regularly read those, that they wouldn't even notice that, this could be a problem, or why do we have this, or is this number really true? So yes, it has been. And it's an easy way for me to help, because it comes naturally, it comes easy. Whereas many who don't have the background struggle with, what do these numbers mean? I don't understand. So, and I hope that I'm able to help those people as well begin to learn that, because you do, no matter what your background, in my opinion, one of the requirements of being a good board member is that you do have some kind of, even if it's at a high level, that you have an understanding of the financial situation of the organization. Because, as you well know, if it's not solid, it's going to be one of the things that, no matter how good your cause, if you're not a financially solid organization, you're not going to be able to serve that cause.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because we have a lot of conversations, and it's every board member's responsibility, even if financials don't come naturally, to educate yourself and ask those questions, because asking questions, obviously leads to answers and helps you dissect and understand the situation. Now, let me ask you this. So you're at Space Coast Health Foundation, you're board chair again, right? You've come back after 2 years off, in which I just found absolutely fascinating that you would do that. So tell me a little bit about the thought process, and then how are you different this time than last time as board chair? Because now you've got the experience under your belt now.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I volunteered to take the role again. I mean, one of the reasons we're now faced with our term limits. They're finally, we're with the age of the organization, the term limits are finally starting to kick in. So we are losing quite a few of our seasoned volunteers on our organization. So we have several new faces. and nobody really felt ready to take it up at this point. And having done it before, I kind of knew what was to be expected. So I didn't have the hesitation that I may have normally had, and felt like it was the right thing and the right time to do it. And as you well know, with your work with us, I think what's different this time is that we've decided to change our grant making process. So it is causing us to do a whole lot of thinking and planning and asking a lot of questions and scratching our heads as to what do we do now. So I'm not sure I realized that we were going off on a whole new direction when I said yes. I will chair this again, but it's good. It's good, and I hope that because I've been here before, that it makes this transition a little easier. Maybe I know we're going to have bumps in the road because it's all new to us with our goal of more impact investing in the grant making process. So. That's probably my new challenge this time around.
Oh, I would think so. And you all are going through a significant change, and I commend you for it. And I respect your board so much for being willing to do it, because that's really hard for a group of people to say, wow, we really want to evolve and change and go in a really different and a very positive direction. I'm excited for y'all. So as a board chair, talking more at the board chair level, and even given past experiences, what's the biggest challenges that board chairs have?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, frankly, is running a meeting, just to make sure that everybody gets a chance to that there's input from everyone, but that yes, you also need to respect that everybody's here as a volunteer, and you need to respect their time. You need to get started on time. You need to allow enough time for topics to get the appropriate amount of discussion, but yet not let it go off on a tangent, and having to sometimes just to say, hey, we've got to stop this and get back on track and move on. So I think just that part is the hard part. But because everybody, our board, and even with our new faces, we've just been very fortunate to have a very cohesive. And yes, you've been with us at times. I mean, we all come from. We're very fortunate that we have financial people, and since we're engaged in health, we have clinicians, and which is very valuable. So we can all bring a different perspective to an issue, and that I wouldn't think of, and I will bring up something that somebody else doesn't think of. So that's the wonderful part of it. I really do think the difficult part is just running the meeting. The rest of it, works pretty well for us for the most part.
No, I think you summed it up exactly right, because you're herding cats. And I love how you said, look, and you made a point to note, these are volunteers, and you want to allow everybody to offer their input. This isn't a business meeting like we're accustomed to in the business world, especially you running your own CPA firm. You made decisions, boom, boom, you go, 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 go. And sometimes people have a tough time making that transition into the nonprofit space and go, wait a second, I run a business, but you look around the room, well, so does she, so does he. And it's really important to create an environment where you're getting input from everybody. Otherwise, you're really going to cut them off at the knees, and you're going to have a disengaged board and board members.
Exactly. And we're so, like I said, we're so fortunate to have such different perspectives from our community that have come from education as well. We have a former school board employee, assistant superintendent. So, because, as you well know, health affects everybody. So there's not hardly a group that we can't benefit from as far as their background and their exposure to our community. Michael, I will have to say that probably one of the most personal benefits to me was the education of what really is who is our community. And I'm sure, I think we've had this discussion that in, our both of our counties, I mean, we're the Space Coast. We launch rockets here. We just did one this morning at 6:45 a.m. So that happens frequently here. So you think, well, yes, we are a very well-educated engineer community and have been now for, many, many decades. But I did one of my longtime board service was our Brevard Schools Foundation. And I think your community has one as well. They are a direct service or organization that was created by the state to help support public schools. And I served 25 years on our board because I just felt, that's another strong area for me is education. It's so important. It's the great equalizer, in my opinion. Health and education. If you give everybody those basic standards there, they got a better chance of making it. But I learned, I think we're at somewhere over, 60% of our children in this county qualify for free and reduced lunch. And that was a number that's staggering to me. So where are these people and what are their needs and why? Why are we struggling with this? So and if you don't know, let's say that, you have the luxury of working at one of the contractors with the space program and you just drive up to the Cape every day, you may not be aware that that's our community and that's very important, but we have a whole bunch of other people that are struggling.
Another benefit of serving on the board of a nonprofit is to learn and understand your community from a completely different perspective. Boy, you really just hit the nail on the head. That's how it happened for me. You live in your own bubble, your own world, right? And some of us are very blessed. And until you go and expose yourself to something different, you really have no sense for what's going on in your community. That is so profound what you just said there. What a benefit of serving on the board.
Well, it has been an eye-opener, and one of the reasons I love to continue to serve, because they're just always, every day somebody tells me something that I mean, we're a unique county over here of being 72 miles long. And you're very well aware that we have North Brevard, Central Brevard, South Brevard, and our parochialism shows up a lot of times. And we even have, different weather. I mean, we're just in that right spot that there's things you can grow, up north that you can't grow south and vice versa. So it sometimes, and that's why I've really, because as I said, my first experience was the local chamber, and we have, I think now 6 Chamber of Commerces in our county. So, it is intended to serve a particular area. So Keep Brevard Beautiful was one of my first opportunities to be on a countywide board and to get exposed to people and issues that are significantly different in the north area of our county to the south area of our county. So getting those opportunities to be on those kinds of boards have been very, very beneficial.
And it sounds like you benefit from that, or you've enjoyed that. So even the board members, you got the diversity in board members. You even alluded to that with Space Coast Health Foundation, all the different backgrounds and sectors, if you will, even parts of the county. But I can only imagine, and every board you served on has given you exposure to just different things going on in the community.
It has. And I feel very, very privileged to have that opportunity.
So do you suggest to people, younger people especially, that they join a nonprofit board?
Oh, definitely. And I know that it's difficult. I mean, at that point in your life, you've got not only your work, but you have your family.
Yes.
I mean, I remember the days of jostling work and volunteer and Little League games and soccer games. And my husband was the coach. So, that he was very engaged. So I had to pick up the balance on the other. So I know it's a very tough time. And I was very fortunate. Again, I was in my early 30s when I started my own business. So I could dictate my own schedule. And so I could do those things, but many times that meant at 7 o'clock I was headed back to the office, being, with a tax practice, so you have deadlines, and there's only so many extensions you can file for a tax return. At some point, you got to get them done. So
the CPA secret there, file an extension, right?
Exactly.
Oh, too good. Wait, and you were able to accomplish all of this despite your undergraduate education.
Wondered when that was going to show up.
To the listeners, so Linda is from Kentucky, went to University of Kentucky, and we always tease about that because, of course, as you all know, I went to University of Tennessee, and so we have a good time prodding each other about that, especially during various seasons of the year. She loves to talk about basketball season. Die so.
But I'm looking forward to football.
and you should, because he's done a remarkable job there. You're absolutely right. Too good, Linda. So, Linda, as we start to wind this down a little bit, board chairs out there, because that's a unique position. It's a leadership position on the board. You've got to manage and navigate all these individual personalities. You got to work closely with the CEO. What recommendations or advice do you have for board chairs?
Well, for board members in general, do not volunteer if you don't really care about the mission. It's got to be in your heart as well as in your head. And so getting yourself there and on the board is really the first place. Chairing it, I think, again, you need to know your people. You need to know the personalities that you're dealing with. And I personally am not one that likes a lot of conflict. So I would really work hard at making sure that everyone gets to speak and that everyone is but respectful. And you know me, you've got to have a sense of humor, just like and sometimes that's what it needs to bring something back around to the point that we're trying to make. And you have to care. You have to care. And if you're doing this to fill out a resume, you're doing it for the wrong reason, and you won't enjoy it. So you've got to make sure you love the mission. You respect the people that you're working with, and respect your position, because you are the board. You're leading the board. You're not the management. And I think sometimes board chairs can easily fall into that mistake of assuming that they're playing more of a management role than they should be. So gives you the opportunity, because of access, you can be the eyes and ears of the board and share what information that you learn in that capacity, but don't fall into that trap that you're part of management now.
Oh, very good. And you honor the swim lane that you're in, because you may run a company on the outside, but on this inside, you're only in that advisory capacity. And you're advising and helping and supporting the CEO. You're not getting into, in your case, her business on a day-to-day. And some board chairs really struggle with that. But you do a remarkable job of keeping that separation.
Well, thank you. It's on purpose.
Yeah, and I know sometimes it probably drives you crazy, but you just know you've got to, you've matured into the position. You know that's the role. You've got to understand your role, and you said it very eloquently. So as we wind this down finally, and as we part ways, Linda, anything else you'd like to share with the audience on being a leader on nonprofit boards, on governance, on the roles, responsibilities that people can take and walk away with?
Well, I think you really have to make the commitment to do the work. I tell you, as a board chair, one of the most frustrating things is when you have board members and we have significant topics and they come unprepared, and you're wasting everybody's time. So if you can't do the job, don't take it. because you won't be happy. And if you're not happy, you're not going to make anybody else happy with that. So you've got to love the mission, you've got to love the organization, and you have to love the people that you're working with. So if you're finding you have issues with any of that, I advise you don't do it.
Great advice. And we're going to end on that. Linda Dale, CPA, alumnus of the University of Kentucky, and a very successful board chair for Space Coast Health Foundation, on the board at the credit union. And as she said, she has been a board member of a number of boards. Linda, thank you so much for being on the I-501CU podcast.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure. Always good to see you.
All right, recapping with Reed. Reed, we just heard from Linda Dale. What were your takeaways from this podcast?
So my first takeaway was, just because you have a CPA, you're bringing a CPA on the board, does not mean you have to make them the treasurer. They will thank you for that as well, because they've probably been a treasurer on every board they've served on.
That is so true. What about number 2?
Good board members have some kind of understanding of the financial situation. You do not have to be an expert, but you should be able to ask questions.
Yeah, very good. And number 3.
When it comes to taking a board position, if you can't do the job, if you can't commit the time, don't take the position, because you won't be happy. You won't be providing value to the organization. So just be aware of the commitment that it takes to being on the board before joining.
We've talked about this, and you specifically have talked about this before on this podcast. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, recapping with Reed, and we will I-501 see you next week.